Welcome, dearly beloved, you rare and precious souls. One misstep can unravel destinies, but one insightful move can liberate you from ancestral chains. Did you know neuroscience reveals the human brain can process a decision in a startling 200 milliseconds, eclipsing the speed of conscious thought? Imagine then executing a maneuver so swift, so nuanced, so precisely calibrated that its impact remains unseen until the very foundations shift. Chosen one, you have orchestrated precisely that. More than just a choice, it was a spiritual pivot so stealthy it bypassed conventional awareness, yet so resonant it shattered centuries-old patterns. The adversary never heard the castle gates fall. They simply awoke to find their dominion in ruins, and somehow you had already vanished. They envisioned a chess game. Little did they suspect you were silently disconnecting the board from its power source. Today we will dissect the mechanics of your invisible revolution, illuminating how you dismantled every spiritual impediment with a single imperceptible action, rendering their structures irrevocably broken. Number 1. You transcended cycle breaking. You dissolved the blueprint. Mere resistance to recurring patterns is insufficient. You eradicated the very architecture upon which they were built. This subtle distinction often goes unnoticed. Many combat patterns by confronting them in their manifestations. However, as long as the original design persists, the pattern retains the potential for regeneration. Like demolishing a house but preserving the architectural schematics. Inevitably, someone will rebuild according to the old plans. Your action possesses a permanence that eludes superficial resistance. You ventured to the genesis, into the unseen realm, and dismantled the structure, leaving nothing to reconstruct. Observe how individuals from your past are now struggling to replicate their former tactics. The emotional lures, the manipulative strategies, the familiar dramas that once ensnared you. They now encounter an unresponsive void. It's as if they are pressing buttons on a machine disconnected from power. Frustration mounts as their methods prove futile, leaving them bewildered. Their perception is that you have changed. But the truth extends far deeper. You have severed the foundation that provided their games with a space to exist. Breaking the cycle at its core eliminates the energetic alignment between you and the problem. Previously, an unspoken agreement, a subconscious harmony with the pattern facilitated its access to your life. Now that accord is nullified, the doorway bricked over. Even long-standing temptations now lack their previous allure. It is more than mere willpower. You have severed the pattern's oxygen supply. Rarely is the sheer exhaustion of this endeavor acknowledged. Navigating the deep hidden recesses where generational trauma and spiritual contracts reside is not glamorous. It demands an exceptional level of self-awareness and the courage to relinquish the familiar comfort of dysfunction. Segments of your identity had to perish to eradicate any resonance with the archaic blueprint. This ensures lasting transformation. You didn't just oppose the pattern, you evolved into an entity incapable of harboring it. The spiritual landscape around you is forever altered. The blueprint is irretrievably destroyed. Consequently, the shackles that bound others for decades can no longer claim you. Number 2. You strategically shifted the battlefield to an inaccessible dimension. This relocation has irrevocably altered the dynamic. Most conflicts repeat due to perpetual engagement on familiar grounds. The same emotional terrain, identical mental triggers, recurring points of attack. This represents the enemy's comfort zone. They are intimately acquainted with the landscape, its vulnerabilities, and the placement of traps. Continuing to engage in this arena necessitates fighting on their terms. You disrupted that agreement, refusing to engage in expected territories, elevating the conflict to an unattainable dimension. This is not about avoidance. It is about recalibrating the rules of engagement so dramatically that the opposition is rendered clueless. You transcended the emotional frequency where they could reach you. Their taunts, machinations, and manipulations are still projected, yet they fail to find their mark because you are no longer tuned in. It's analogous to forwarding mail from an abandoned address. They anticipate a reaction, a defense, a breakdown, yet encounter only silence because you are no longer present. This was a calculated shift born from understanding the principle that energy attracts its resonance. Remaining within specific emotional states rendered you accessible. Therefore, you consciously elevated your spiritual and mental plane, focusing your intention, refining your responses, and refusing to participate in unproductive exchanges. The higher you ascended, the less receptive you became to previously effective tactics. Now the battlefield exists within your dominion. You operate from a position of clarity, tranquility, and strategic foresight, not chaos. This disorients them, as chaos was their primary weapon and defense. By refusing to engage on that terrain, you deprive them of both. The true power resides in this: when they are unable to reach you, they are forced to retreat or turn against each other, their customary power source severed. By relocating the battlefield, you have not only protected yourself but transformed their greatest advantage into a dead end. Number 3, you became the wild card the ancient patterns never factored in. You embody the unpredictable element, defying predetermined calculations. Spiritual and generational cycles endure through reliance on predictability. They anticipate consistent reactions to predictable pressures. They rely on consistent manifestations of fear, pride, and pain, leading to predictable, destructive choices. The cycle persists by assuming subsequent individuals will adhere to the familiar script, often unconsciously. You disrupted that. You deviated from the expected sequence. Where the pattern predicted anger, you demonstrated composure. Where it expected capitulation, you persisted. Where it anticipated seeking approval, you withdrew. You became the unpredictable element, disrupting the formula. The pattern cannot adjust rapidly enough because its power is rooted in repetition, not adaptation. This transformation occurred amidst adversity. Your awareness shifted. You perceived each situation as an attempt to enforce a predetermined outcome. You anticipated the setup before its climax. Instead of complying, you dismantled the chain link by link. Patterns cannot withstand scrutiny. They thrive in the subconscious among those who react instinctively. Consciously observing the moves made against you shatters the illusion that this is simply how things are. You transitioned from being a pawn to being the player, surveying the entire board. Being the variable empowers you to dismantle the pattern not only in your life but also in the lives of those connected to you. Once you demonstrate the script's malleability, The curse is exposed as conditional. Others may persist, but they can no longer claim inevitability, for you have shattered the illusion. You demonstrated that one divergent choice nullifies the equation. The pattern realizes its dominion is broken and it ceases to exist. Number 4. You neutralize the trigger words embedded in your lineage. Some families harbor patterns so deeply ingrained that a single word accusation or scenario can unleash generations of suppressed anger, shame, or discord. These are spiritual tripwires, programmed buttons designed to elicit reactions. These can manifest as certain topics invariably sparking arguments, phrases inflicting immediate wounds, or specific periods consistently marred by strife. For years, these triggers functioned flawlessly because no one contemplated disarming them. Everyone blindly stumbled into the trap, accepting it as inevitable. You disrupted this pattern quietly, without fanfare. You observed the patterns, recognized the emotional setup, and consciously decided to cease taking the bait. This was not easy, as those triggers are designed to feel personal, compelling you to defend, attack, or succumb to guilt. Instead, you remained steadfast. Instead of mirroring the energy projected toward you, you allowed it to pass unimpeded. Initially, those around you were unsettled, expecting the typical explosion. The ensuing silence was alien, but that was the objective. Without the predictable reaction, the cycle collapses. A trigger only possesses power if it elicits a response. By refusing to engage, you sever the connection. This transformation transcends suppressing feelings. It involves rewiring your internal response so that those stimuli no longer trigger the old emotional state. You didn't just cease reacting. You eradicated the part of you that could be provoked. Those tripwires are now impotent. They have lost their power over you, and the future for a single individual in a bloodline mastering emotional equilibrium renders that weapon useless forever. You have ensured its non-transmission. The game concludes, yet its ending remains obscure to them. Number 5. You recalibrated your spirit to disregard ancient summons. There's a reason some struggles feel less like mistakes and more like a compelling force, drawing you back into familiar troubles. These are not mere habits, but spiritual summons designed to lure you towards cycles you seek to escape. They can manifest as sudden urges, temptations, or coincidences conspiring to return you to square one. Most remain oblivious to this deeper influence, succumbing to the pull. You severed that connection by shifting your frequency, not merely instructing yourself to resist, but by realigning the spiritual channel upon which you operate. Imagine having your number removed from a list plaguing your lineage. The line still exists, the calls still persist, yet you are deaf to them. This is the culmination of profound inner work, reprogramming your spiritual responses. This transcends willpower, which can still perceive the summons while attempting to resist. You distanced yourself from the signal's range, addressing the root causes granting access in the first place. Unhealed wounds, unresolved agreements, subconscious attraction to harm. You broke the implicit contracts, enabling the patterns to beckon you back. Now the lure evokes no reaction, curiosity, or spark. The chain is broken, the hook unable to find purchase because you no longer desire what is offered. This confounds those who once easily manipulated you. They employ the same bait words and setups, yet you remain unmoved. The liberation extends beyond your own freedom, ensuring that the summons will not resonate in future stages of your life. By removing your frequency from the signal's range, you ensure it remains silent. The voice may shout, but it will remain perpetually inaudible. Number 6. You transcended the curse's expiration date. Some spiritual patterns are finite. They have a life cycle. Survival depends on renewal through subsequent generations. This perpetuates familial struggles. The curse is not immortal, but continually sustained through choices, agreements, or unhealed wounds that serve as its sustenance. It anticipates each generation succumbing, allowing the cycle to resume. You defied that expectation, progressing beyond its peak influence. For some, the tipping point is age. For others, intense hardship, revealing the curse's weight. You reached a stage where others before you capitulated, fragmented, or repeated a pattern. You persevered, preventing the curse from refreshing through you. This was not merely physical survival, but emotional and spiritual resilience. You traversed the landscape without permitting bitterness, addiction, violence, or self-destruction to take root, preventing the transfer. Curses require consent, often unknowingly granted through perpetuating old reactions. You denied that agreement, closing the gate. The curse is now stranded, thwarted by history's failure to repeat. You surpassed its influence, preventing it from leaping forward. You did not transmit it to your children, relationships, or community, starving it of its lifeblood, a willing host. Your life may feel lighter now. Even amidst imperfections, the invisible pressure is gone. You have outlived its reign, preventing it from influencing the future. You broke its chain by refusing to fall before its expiration, now permanently extinguished. Number 7, you refuse to play the villain in their script. Cycles endure because of the willingness to assume assigned roles. Dysfunctional families, broken relationships, and spiritual battles adhere to unspoken scripts. You were expected to be the villain, losing control, making errors, or uttering incriminating words. They needed that version to perpetuate the pattern and their narrative. You disrupted this by refusing to conform, no matter the provocation. They attempted to bait you with insults, traps, and recreations of familiar situations to validate their perception. You withheld the necessary reaction, refusing to deliver the lines assigned to you. This wasn't about feigning virtue, but about genuine inner transformation, deflecting their attacks. When they attempted to target the old you, they found only absence, collapsing their performance. Rehearsed arguments lacked an opponent. Scenes intended for repetition found no energy source. The more you refused to perform, the more awkward and hollow their script. Certain individuals and patterns can only exist if you adopt a certain persona. By refusing that role, you deprive them of the plot. You don't just ruin the scene, you end the story. That collapse offers two options: confronting their dysfunction or seeking a replacement. You rewrote your role to the point where continued drama became impossible. You rejected the part, burned the costume, erased the lines, and exited the stage entirely. Without your cooperation, the play ground to a halt. Number 8. You deciphered the language of patterns and then spoke in silence. Patterns have a language. This comprises cues, tones, attitudes, and maneuvers triggering specific reactions. Understanding this language reveals the scripted nature of conflicts, manipulations, and historical recurrences. Specific words or behaviors function as code unlocking anger, fear, guilt, or compliance. For most of your life, you responded unknowingly. Eventually, you discerned the underlying pattern. You observed recurring emotional hooks, recognizing bait in tonal nuances and discerning insincere apologies as invitations back into the loop. Understanding the structure provided a choice: perpetuate the pattern through continued response, or cease speaking its language entirely. You chose silence, not stemming from fear or avoidance, but from deliberate calculation. Each refusal to respond was a message: this code is invalid. That lack of reaction wasn't emptiness, but a complete shutdown of the pattern's communication. Without your response, the loop lacked fuel. You weren't just biting your tongue, but severing the connection at its roots. True silence in the face of a pattern isn't about pretending to be unaffected, but genuinely disconnecting from the need to engage. The urge to defend, explain, or retaliate was no longer present. A pattern without a language is powerless. If it can't elicit the expected response, it loses leverage. This disruptive silence wasn't weakness, but fluency. You learned the system so effectively that you could dismantle it without a word. In the end, your quiet terminated conversations and the control those conversations once held over your life. Number 9, you severed the energy source sustaining it. Some patterns are parasitic. They are not self-sustaining, but require a constant influx of emotional energy. Fear, outrage, guilt, or the need for understanding. As long as you reacted, it lived. The moment you stopped, it started dying. Parasitic patterns convince you that your reaction is vital. They compel you to defend, explain, or offer a response. Each engagement, even when intending to stand your ground, nourishes it. You were unknowingly sustaining it. You broke this by severing the energy supply. You ceased explaining yourself to those uninterested in understanding. You stopped letting fear dictate your actions. You stopped freely giving away your outrage. Without the desired emotional involvement, the pattern withered. It did not die dramatically or announce its demise, but faded quietly, weakening until its absence became apparent. The individuals or forces behind it may persist, but their tactics are hollow without your energy. They are incapable of eliciting the same reaction, rendering them powerless. This required detachment, not warfare. By controlling the flow of your energy, you gained control. A parasitic pattern cannot regenerate without a host. You did not weaken it temporarily, but severed its lifeline permanently. They were too late. The parasite was already dead, and you had already moved on. They sought a fight, but the power was gone. Number 10, you disrupted their spiritual economy. Some patterns function as a black market. There is constant exchange of emotions, power, and influence. Pain trades for control. Shame trades for silence. Fear trades for compliance. Each concession fuels their system. You broke that by refusing to participate. You stopped reciprocating their manipulation with pain, accepting shame as the price of peace, or letting fear dictate your decisions. This wasn't just walking away, it was shutting down the market by devaluing their currency. Their economy thrives on predictability, knowing how to elicit your reaction. They stir up conflict to harvest anger or press on wounds to make you cave. By refusing the transaction, you eliminate their ability to gain anything. The bait remains dangled, the invoice unpaid. Their system collapsed. A spiritual economy cannot survive without participants. So to recap, what we've explored today is nothing short of a spiritual revolution orchestrated with such profound insight and subtle action that you've dismantled patterns holding you back, rewriting your destiny in the process. It's about understanding the deep mechanics of these cycles, recognizing the battlefields, the language, the energy sources, and ultimately reclaiming your power by refusing to participate in the old scripts. You've become the architect of your own freedom, breaking ancestral chains and forging a new path forward, not just for yourself, but potentially for generations to come. I truly hope this has resonated with you, sparked some insights, or even just given you a new way of looking at challenges you might be facing. I'd absolutely love to hear your thoughts. What resonated most with you? Do you have any questions about any of these 10 points? Or maybe you've experienced something similar in your own life. Please share your comments and let's get a conversation going. And if you found this helpful, inspiring, or just plain interesting, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future explorations into topics like this. We'll be diving deeper into strategies for personal growth and transformation, and I wouldn't want you to miss out.